When someone doesn't give you an answer, that is your answer. In this league, reputation is a currency that general managers spend like water. But the moment the checks start clearing, the reality of production always catches up. The mainstream sports media wants you to believe that the annual ESPN quarterback rankings voted on by the league's top executives, coaches, and scouts is a definitive, objective gospel of NFL talent. They want you to think it represents the absolute truth of who is elite and who is a fraud. But the truth behind these rankings is a calculated exercise in narrative protection, a front office consensus that is spiraling out of control, and a total disaster for anyone who actually watches the games. The release of this year's top 1-0 list didn't just cause a debate, it exposed a massive rift between the executive suites and the realities of the gridiron. We have seen quarterbacks rise and fall, but we have never seen a list so fundamentally detached from the cold, hard facts of the game. And the moment the rankings hit the wire, with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes occupying the top spots, the narrative war was officially declared. The media has spent years painting Patrick Mahomes as an untouchable god, a player who can do no wrong even when his receiving core is imploding. They want to protect the image of the Golden Boy, the face of the league, and they will bend the statistics in any direction necessary to ensure he remains at the top. But some figures in the league are finally starting to speak the truth, challenging the mainstream narrative and delivering a psychological shock to the NFL establishment. They are looking past the MVP trophies and the Super Bowl rings to evaluate what is actually happening on the field right now. They are questioning whether Mahomes is truly the force of nature he once was, or if the cracks in the Chiefs' armor are beginning to show. In contrast, Josh Allen is playing some of the most dominant, terrifying football of his career, carrying a depleted Buffalo Bills offense on his back and proving to be a one-man wrecking crew. The debate is no longer about potential, it is about current production. And the results are shocking to those who refuse to let go of the past. The consensus is fracturing, and the criticism is growing louder by the day. Tim Hasselbeck, a former NFL quarterback who understands the game from the inside out, stepped up to challenge the status quo. And when he didn't just question the rankings, he declared a full-scale war on the media's narrative.
We'll get to the rest of it later, don't worry. Tim, you agree Allen over Mahomes at number one?
I do agree with that. Look, Mahomes hasn't been great the last 2 years. He's been good, not great. Josh Allen has been great. Listen, I think when you look at
the idea that Patrick Mahomes is no longer the undisputed king of the NFL is a career-altering statement for the sports media complex. But it is only the tip of the iceberg. As we dive deeper into the top 5 of this survey, the ranking of Matthew Stafford at number 3, ahead of both Joe Burrow and the reigning MVP Lamar Jackson, is defensible but highly controversial. Stafford has experienced a career renaissance under Sean McVay in Los Angeles. But placing him in the top 3 is a massive gamble on his health and age. Yet, nothing, absolutely nothing prepared the NFL world for the sheer audacity of placing Joe Burrow at number 4. The Cincinnati Bengals franchise has been riding the wave of Joe Cool nostalgia for years, banking on a Super Bowl appearance that is beginning to look more like a historical anomaly than a yearly expectation. The media wants you to believe that Burrow is in this rarefied air, an elite processor who belongs in the MVP conversation every single season. They want you to ignore the mounting medical bills and the weeks he spends in a baseball cap on the sidelines, acting as a highly paid spectator. But when you look at the cold, hard statistics, the decision to rank Joe Burrow as the 4th best quarterback in the entire league is not just a reach, it is an absolute nightmare of evaluation. The Bengals have built their entire franchise identity around Burrow, signing him to a massive contract that limits their ability to retain key weapons like T. Higgins or bring in elite defensive talent. They have put all their eggs in one basket, believing that his ceiling is high enough to justify the immense risk. But the reality is that a quarterback who cannot stay on the field is a liability, not an asset. The front office is living in a state of constant anxiety, praying that every snap doesn't lead to another season-ending injury. Tim Hasselbeck, a former NFL quarterback who understands the immense physical toll of this position, did not hold back. He pointed out the gaping flaw in the Burrow hype train that the executives chose to ignore, exposing a level of bias that is holding the franchise back.
I think Joe Burrow is way too high.
Oh, wow.
He's been in the league 6 years. He's started every game of the regular season just 3 times. That's half. So, to think that he's in this rarefied air inside the
Hasselbeck's criticism of Joe Burrow was a bombshell that blew the lid off the media's narrative. And the fallout is going to be massive. Let's look at the cold, hard facts of the situation. Joe Burrow has been in the NFL for 6 years. In that time, he has signed a record-breaking contract that has put the Bengals in potential cap space hell, making it incredibly difficult to build a balanced roster. And yet, he has managed to start every game of the regular season just 3 times. That is a 50-50 proposition. A coin flip's chance of having your franchise player available when the season is on the line. Imagine running a business where your most expensive asset is only operational half the time. You would be fired immediately. But in the NFL, the Bengals front office is praised for their loyalty while their team spirals out of control. Much of this blame falls on the front office's persistent failure to construct a competent offensive line to protect their franchise cornerstone. Since entering the league, Burrow has been subjected to a continuous onslaught, suffering more sacks and hits than almost any other quarterback in the same time frame. The front office has drafted players like Jonah Williams and signed expensive free agents. But the pocket continues to collapse, and Burrow continues to pay the physical price. To put this in perspective, look at Jared Goff. Goff has been treated like a journeyman, a player who was discarded by the Los Angeles Rams and sent to Detroit to fade into obscurity as a bridge quarterback. Yet, under Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, Goff has been the absolute model of consistency, showing up week in and week out behind a dominant offensive line. Over the last 4 years, Jared Goff is averaging over 500 yards passing and over 30 touchdowns on the season. Those are elite, top-tier numbers that keep the Lions in the championship conversation year after year. Meanwhile, Burrow has thrown for over 500 yards in a season just twice. He has thrown over 30 touchdowns just 3 times. The contrast is not just clear, it is embarrassing for the executives who voted on this list. They have allowed aesthetic appeal and media narrative to override actual physical production. Goff is leading a high-powered offense in Detroit, showing up every week and winning playoff games. Yet he is ranked all the way at number 9. The disrespect is palpable, and the logic behind it is completely broken. The media wants you to focus on Burrow's highlights, but the stats tell a different story.
Play at an MVP level that are always, seemingly available. That's really surprising to me. And just for a little context, Jared Goff is all the way at 9. Over the last 4 years, Jared Goff is averaging over 4,500 yards, passing and over 30 touchdowns on the season. Burrow has thrown for over 4,500.
The comparison between Jared Goff and Joe Burrow exposes the ultimate hypocrisy of NFL evaluation. The media is obsessed with aesthetic appeal, fashion choices, and press conference swagger. They love the cigars, the designer suits, and the bold quote about the Super Bowl window being his entire career. But in the real world of professional football, the best ability is availability. If you cannot get on the field, your elite processing, your decision-making, and your arm talent are completely useless. It is a disaster for the locker room, an absolute nightmare for the play caller who has to constantly adjust the game plan for a backup, and a betrayal of the fan base that pays hard-earned money to watch their team compete. Look at the extensive list of injuries Burrow has endured. A devastating torn ACL and MCL in his rookie season of 2020. A dislocated finger. a severe calf strain that derailed the early part of the 2023 campaign, and a torn ligament in his right wrist that prematurely ended his season. A wrist injury for a throwing quarterback is an anatomically complex disaster, raising serious questions about whether he can ever regain his former velocity and accuracy. Hasselbeck brought up a painful contrast, pointing to the career of his brother, Matthew Hasselbeck, who played nearly 20 years in this league as a starting quarterback and never once ended up on the injured reserve list. He pointed to Tom Brady, who missed a season due to a freak ACL tear in 2008, but was otherwise an Ironman, starting every single game for 2 decades. These are the standards of true greatness. If you want to be ranked in the top 5, if you want to be paid $55 million a year, and compared to Patrick Mahomes, you have to show up. You cannot miss 16 games over a 2-year stretch and expect to be treated like a franchise savior. The Bengals front office is currently paying a massive premium for a player who is increasingly look like a depreciating asset. The cap hit is real. The pressure is mounting, and the excuses are running out. When Burrow is healthy, he is undeniable. But the moments of health are becoming fewer and farther between. The window is not his entire career. It is a rapidly closing door that is being slammed shut by the physical reality of his injuries. And the Bengals are running out of time to fix it.
Look, I get freak injuries and things of that nature. If you are not available for your team, that's a tough one for me.
I love getting a little Matthew Hasselbeck love on the show today. That's good stuff. Joe Burrow, by the way, missing 16 games since 2020.
The Bengals are facing a brutal, unforgiving reality in the AFC North. They have to play against Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP who, despite his high-profile playoff struggles, actually wins games in the regular season and keeps the Ravens at the top of the division. They have to face a physical, punishing Cleveland Browns defense that is designed to destroy quarterbacks, and a Pittsburgh Steelers team under Mike Tomlin that is always in the playoff fight. In this division, a 50-50 quarterback is a recipe for disaster. With Burrow's massive salary cap hit taking effect, the Bengals have had to make painful roster cuts. They let productive running back Joe Mixon walk, and they are currently locked in a toxic franchise tag standoff with wide receiver T. Higgins. The depth on their defense is severely depleted. Brad Holmes in Detroit has built a winner by drafting players who are tough, gritty, and available. The Rams have built a contender around a healthy Matthew Stafford. Meanwhile, Cincinnati is praying that Joe Burrow's wrist, calf, and knees can survive another 17-game gauntlet. If Burrow goes down again, the Bengals' season is instantly over, and their championship aspirations will implode into cap space hell. The media will continue to make excuses, writing articles about what could have been if only Burrow was healthy. But the NFL does not grade on a curve. You are either winning games or you are watching them from the couch in a baseball cap. The executives who voted Burrow at number 4 are living in a fantasy land, ignoring the physical reality of the sport to preserve a narrative they helped create. They are valuing the memory of 2021 over the reality of 2026. And this brings us to the ultimate question. Did the NFL executives commit franchise evaluation suicide by placing Joe Burrow in the top 5? Or is the media completely right to prioritize his high ceiling over his physical availability? Is Joe Burrow a certified superstar who is just having bad luck, or is he the most overrated, injury-prone asset in the entire league? Should the Cincinnati Bengals start looking at a contingency plan, or is it Super Bowl or bust for Joe Cool? Run to the comments right now and let me know what you think, because this division war has just begun.